Hello. Thank you very much, Senator Bennett, for joining us today and taking time out of your schedule and away from your family to be here with Telluride. Thank you. So we're now moving to our panel discussion. The topic today is the role of entrepreneurship in our changing economy, and we have three panelists here today. I want to invite them to come up and sit up here up front. Amy, Erik, Peter. So I'm going to do a quick intro to each. Their full bios are in your program if you'd like to see those. I've asked each to share from their perspective, and they each have very unique perspectives on this topic, to share a few minutes of their thoughts. And then once each has gone, we'll open it up to questions from the audience. So first will be Erik Lisher, who joins us from Blackstone, where he's a managing director in the Investor Relations and Business Development Group, overseeing private equity. Erik will share his thoughts on entrepreneurial disruption at a macro level as it relates to trends in the economy and trends in private equity. And then Amy Stursberg joins us from the Blackstone Charitable Foundation, where she's the executive director. Blackstone Charitable Foundation has a 5-year, $50 million entrepreneurship initiative, and Amy will talk about that work and trends she's seeing on a national level. And then finally, Peter Levine joins us from Andreessen Horowitz, the well-known technology VC fund in San Francisco. Peter's also a TVA mentor and spent some time with our companies this past winter and is a part-time Telluride resident, and also has deep entrepreneurial experience himself. Peter will drill down to the level of the entrepreneur, the micro level, and talk about trends he is seeing with companies and entrepreneurs. So please join me in welcoming our panelists today. So Erik, we'll start with you.
Sure. And thank you very much for having us here today. There's a lot of buzz and excitement at Blackstone about what we're doing more broadly in Colorado related to entrepreneurship, and more specifically here in Telluride. And it's really tangible. You can feel the excitement and buzz, again, not just in the state, but here in Telluride, where we've spent the last couple days. And as I told Paul at breakfast this morning, anytime you want to get me out here, I'm more than happy to come out here and not wear a tie. Although I didn't get the memo that I guess Colorado business casual is jeans, not khakis. So next time I'll know that. Let me just spend a minute or two talking about kind of what we're seeing, broadly speaking, in the private equity space and the economy, and how it's kind of impacting how we're thinking about deploying capital in the current economic environment, which is not an easy one, whether it's private equity capital, venture capital. Again, we kind of I'll describe it as kind of the tale of two economies. You have a low interest rate environment, corporate borrowing costs at the lowest rates ever, which is great for a lot of reasons in terms of companies being able to refinance, borrow, merge with other companies or buy other companies at low interest rates. You have equity markets at all-time highs. You have debt capital markets, high yield markets, and leveraged loan markets in particular, which we in the private equity space look at in terms of how we refinance our portfolio companies and buy other companies. This is all great news for many reasons. But in the backdrop, you have anemic U.S. economic growth. Most people, including Blackstone, are looking at kind of GDP growth this year of 2 to 3%. You still have unemployment at lower levels than they were several years ago, but again, still an issue that needs to be dealt with. And then you ultimately have a rising interest rate environment, which you currently don't have today, but it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when that's going to be an issue that we need to deal with. And so with that backdrop, again, we need to be very critical and cognizant about how you deploy capital, again, whether it's private equity capital or venture capital. And what we are looking for at Blackstone, more broadly speaking, is companies that are really growing on a top-line basis. Because the days of financial engineering and just buying a company and looking at levering it up and playing the interest rate game, those days are over. So in terms of how we think about deploying capital and hitting our return hurdles, we have to think about companies that are growing. So again, a lot of where we're spending our time is, which probably won't surprise anyone in this room, are opportunities, looking at growth opportunities and deploying capital in the energy space, more broadly speaking, and deploying capital in what we describe as kind of venture infrastructure investments. So backing management teams, looking at particularly focused on building out opportunities in the alternative energy space, wind farm projects, global water development projects, to use two examples. We've also seen a lot of opportunity in kind of technology-enabled services businesses, so IT, software, cybersecurity space. And then I'll say the third space we continue to see good opportunities to deploy capital is in the branded consumer space. So looking again at partnering with companies, kind of proven brands, but thinking about how we provide growth equity to help them build and grow their businesses, both here domestically and abroad, and help them use that capital to also expand their products. So that's somewhat, hopefully, what you were looking for in terms of what we're seeing at Blackstone, how we're deploying capital, and kind of what we're seeing in the economy more broadly speaking.
So Amy, thank you.
Okay, great. You don't want to open it up to questions till after?
No, I think we'll do it.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for having me here today, and Erik from Blackstone. Let me just take a minute to say, first of all, this is I travel all around the country all the time. This is definitely my #1 spot. I've never been here before. So it's been, just was in Aspen and Denver in the last couple of days, but this is really amazing. So just let me tell you briefly about what the Blackstone Charitable Foundation is doing. We're focused on entrepreneurship. When I have a background in not-for-profit and government, and when I came to Blackstone after running the 9/11 fund, the mission was education of disadvantaged youth, sort of, outside, obviously, what Blackstone does, but your typical charity, corporate philanthropy, let's do something that makes us look good. Right when I got there, the economic crisis happened, and Steve Schwartzman, our founder, chairman, and CEO, said, let's shift the foundation and do something that's responsive to the economic crisis. So we worked for over a year to really think about what that was and kind of innovative and entrepreneurial in our own ways, thinking how can we leverage the assets of Blackstone, what we're doing. And very small infrastructure at the foundation. It's really about finding partners around the country and eventually around the world that can implement and help us develop our work. So over a period of time, we decided to focus on entrepreneurship, the true job creator of the future. And just given my background, really what it's sort of morphed into is a focus on strengthening entrepreneurial ecosystems. And Senator Bennett mentioned a lot of the work we're doing is identifying regions and states like Colorado, sort of my poster child of the moment, which we launched this $4 million project 2 months ago, that is a region that's really grappling in really productive and positive ways with the issue of how to support their entrepreneurs, how to retain their companies once they get to a certain level, not lose them to New York or Silicon Valley or Boston, and all of the issues around that, mentorship, access to capital, really engaging and connecting the community and the leaders in the community in entrepreneurship and business. And so we identify regions and states around the country where we have projects in North Carolina, now in Colorado, and we're going to be bringing that to other regions around the country that are similar in that they have an ecosystem, but it's somewhat fractured. And that's a lot of our focus. And so this Telluride Venture Accelerator is another program of ours, the Blackstone Organizational Grants Program, which are smaller grants, but they're really identifying organizations that are supporting entrepreneurs in specific regions and are really sort of piloting, expanding, or replicate a model that we think is important and innovative. We don't have a lot of constraints at the foundation. We have a lot of support from the firm. We leverage the assets of the firm, whether it's our portfolio companies, our investors, our employees. We have deal teams on all our projects around the country. And so we really do it very differently than most corporate philanthropies. And one of the things that I realized, and I was talking to Senator Bennett and Monisha on his staff about this, who was very instrumental in helping us develop this project from the get-go and making sure that it was a regional development of the project, so giving Colorado and Denver what they needed, was how to link things like this that are going on here. We're just brand new in Denver and Boulder, what we're trying to do there and around the rest of the state, but also linking what's going on here with this new strengthened ecosystem in Denver. Again, what's going on here should be linked to other things that are going on in the state. So we're really excited, just as excited about what you're doing here, and can't wait to see the companies. That's the best part of my job, is just really get to be out and see the work that's going on. So thank you so much for having us, and good luck today.
Thank you, Amy. Peter.
All right. I'm Peter Levine from Andreessen Horowitz. I'm a general partner there. Just a little backdrop on the firm, where we have $4.5 billion under management. We're a software focus firm, so we invest in companies that are doing something with software. Given that software is in just about everything, we invest in just about everything. Enterprise consumer, seed to growth, and one notable attribute, which I know goes over very well with entrepreneurs, is we like to invest in founders who are starting a company now and intend to grow with that company, as opposed to replacing with a professional CEO or some professional management. We like to invest in technical founders and then have them grow up to be the CEOs and leaders of the companies, even when companies go to scale. We believe that it's easier to teach technical founders the nuances of management as opposed to teaching a professional CEO the nuances of technology. So that's sort of a backdrop on the firm. In terms of the industry, we are seeing a real renaissance in technology and innovation. There's no question about it. Where technology overall is in its very early stages. We're only 6 decades into modern computing. We're 4 decades since the invention of the microprocessor, and 2 decades since the internet became available. Those are very, very short time periods. And we finally now have technology in place to transform industries on a global scale. And we're seeing it right now, whether it's hotel rooms or taxi cabs or movies or books. Industries are being transformed through technology. And what we're seeing is there's 2 catalysts for this. One is everyone on the planet will soon have a supercomputer in their pocket. Billions of users will have a device that's connected to every other human on the planet. And if you think about this, we then go to what's called the Internet of Things, which are devices everywhere connected to all different parts of the ecosystem. There could be trillions of endpoint devices collecting information, all using technology. So that's one trend that is catalyzing this renaissance in computing. Secondly, for entrepreneurs, over the last 10 years, it's now 100 times less expensive to start a technology company. It used to be 10 years ago, I had to go buy, before I could even get started, I had to go buy servers and set them up in a room and then go hire all kinds of people to manage that equipment and buy software just to get things started. Today, I can go to Amazon and in a few minutes get a system where I can start to program. That's point one on that. Point two is the market is now 50 times larger than it was. The computing and technology market is 50 times larger than it was 10 years ago, and programmers are 10 times more effective because of the programming tools and all of that we now have available. So when we combine 1 billion users all connected with the attributes of the market getting larger, we really have this kind of renaissance occurring in technology. Today, everything from cloud computing, social collaboration, the sharing economy are all things that you all have heard of or participating in. Large companies are being built out on the backs of those particular themes. Now, what we're seeing in the future are areas like bioinformatics. So healthcare, we believe, is going to be a very big area. The senator talked about apps being developed for healthcare. We see a tremendous number of apps and applications being geared towards healthcare, which is very encouraging. We also see expert systems and data as we collect more information about the things in our environment. Having expert systems help us to predict what's going to happen in the future will be a big area. Virtual reality, virtual currency, and education are areas that we're seeing as sort of next generation ideas to invest in. Finally, let me comment that great ideas are only a starting point. Like all of you who are starting companies, you have this great idea, you're going to get some funding and go out into the real world. Great ideas are only part of the equation. The other part is execution. So as part of building a great company, hiring, sales, kind of your go-to-market all become very important ingredients such that the great companies are not only great ideas, but consist of great execution. and that will create the franchises of our future.
Thank you, Peter. So, taking a role from crowdfunding, we thought we'd move to the audience for any questions that you all may have of any of the panelists up here. We've got time for a few questions. Are there any questions out there? There's a mic circulating. Chaz has the mic. Jay?
Hello, I have a question for Peter. And for the emerging companies here, can you specifically give them some guidance on what milestones they should look to achieve the Tier 1 venture financing or the Series A round?
It depends on, so there are two buckets: consumer products, consumer-oriented technologies, that is, company to end consumer, or enterprise companies, that is B2B, right? And there'll be two different characteristics for, at least within our firm. On a consumer product, consumer products tend to be, ones that are viral and are, lightning, the ones that we will back are the ones that have lightning in a bottle. So my encouragement to you on the consumer side would be to get out there and prove that the consumer technology that you have is actually getting traction. It's really important because consumer tends to, come and go with the times and that. And so what we look for are growth statistics and metrics against the virality and sort of user base that a consumer product, the uptake of a consumer product. For an enterprise product, it's mostly about the team and the idea. We understand that there's typically a lot more technology and perhaps computer science that goes into an enterprise-oriented product. And so for that, will be about, kind of the idea, your vision on the marketplace, and the team behind it. So that's how we kind of evaluate those two separate concepts.
Joel, over there.
You mentioned you're interested in virtual currency. What's your take on cryptocurrencies? Do you have any plans related to it?
Can you just repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question was, what's our view on virtual currency, and do we have any plays in virtual currency? The answer is we do believe that virtual currencies will play an important part of the economy at some point in the future. The question is when. We do have a few plays in this area. One is Coinbase, a company that actually handles the exchange of Bitcoin, and specific Bitcoin to dollars and dollars to Bitcoin on a near real-time basis. It's very important if a vendor is interacting in Bitcoin that they have a method to get back to dollars and vice versa on a very systematic and reliable basis. So, look, we believe that a lot of technologies start out as almost not believable, as being considered toys or uncredible, and there's a groundswell of kind of economics and efficiency that occurs within these particular types of technologies, and we believe that virtual currency is one of those.
Joel?
Peter, this question to you. Do you think
Sorry.
It's okay. I get it.
Okay.
that startups should have their IP protection in place before they meet with guys like you?
Can you just repeat it?
Yeah, so the question is, do we believe that startups should have their IP protected before coming to us? So I could read into that a couple of ways. Like, I had originally, does that mean you think that we're going to steal the idea and go start? Is that the basis, or is it for investing? Because, like,
Evaluation, would you guide the idea more? Would you try to take
no. What we're looking for, innovation moves very rapidly, and it sort of depends on the market that the company is in. Within the software space, companies do get patents. They get patents over the course of time and depending on the industry they're in. But we don't necessarily look for a company that has IP protection, i.e. patents, before we make an investment. We believe it's the team and the team's ability to out-innovate that actually keeps things in the forefront of kind of patent protection and that. So, yeah.
Amy, I have a question for you. The Telluride Venture Accelerator is an effort that the foundation started, and the founders had in mind that it would impact the region. And there's been a question along the way, because of the companies that we have, they come from all over, they might go back to all over, and I wanted to get your perspective on how this effort impacts our region.
I'm sorry, it was hard for me to hear the beginning. How
Okay.
the
The TVA program, how it would impact the regional ecosystem.
Well, you know, I think one of our goals with these Blackstone organizational grants, these smaller grants, is a little bit more geared toward the specific, you know, place that the project is in. So in Telluride here, I mean, our goal, our hope is that these companies would have an impact on this region. I think in this case, you know, and this is all new for me in the last couple of days, I think really understanding, you know, how the TVA works and sort of what the goals of the TVA are. I think linking to what's going on in Denver in particular can actually even strengthen, and Paul and I were talking about this yesterday, could really strengthen, not only help for the companies to link them to entrepreneurs and others in the Denver, Boulder area to start, but also you know, help in terms of the connections that this region is making for the future and for future companies that come through this region or out of this region. So.
Yes.
As a follow-up to that question, are you looking at any projects in the business infrastructure space? So as you're looking at some of these outlying regions away from Denver, Boulder proper, are you considering any investment relative to communications or transportation or any of the other services and support that new businesses would need?
So just to remember, I'm the Blackstone Foundation. We're a not-for-profit. We're supposed to be, you know, we can only support, first of all, we can't invest in businesses. You know, that's the fine line. We can invest in the systems because our goal is to economic development as well as job creation. So no, I mean, really the purpose of this program, unlike my regional ecosystems, larger programs that we're doing, including in Denver, is really to find organizations that are doing innovative things, whether it's teaching entrepreneurship in inner city schools or in specific regions that are trying something new, or something like Telluride Venture Accelerator that wanted to expand and made a great case for why they could and should expand and how it would help the region and the place. So we're not really getting down into the weeds that way. We're really about, you know, sort of helping entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship support systems, and regions.
All right, I think we have to transition now just to keep the program on schedule. But please join me in thanking our panelists today. Thank you, Erik. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Peter.